The left-hand path, Vama Marga, known in Vedanta. The satanic path, the path of do without will, the thelemic path, the occult path. It has many names, but the left-hand path is what I'm going to go with. If you've listened to how some of my other talks, I've mentioned that I spent 21 years on the left-hand path. I don't know if I called it that in those talks, but I call the occult realms and so forth, but it's the left-hand path. And this is the story of how I began that path. It was early October, year 2000. I was living in New York City on the Upper East Side. I was not employed. I had a little apartment, and by then I had already decided that I was going to be leaving the city and moving to Florida. I would spend my days just doing whatever I wanted. And one of the things I liked doing was going to the Borders bookstore on the corner of 57th and Park Avenue. It was a great store, 3 floors, and it had a cafe upstairs, and just a huge bookstore. In the basement was just this giant, cozy place. And in the basement was their quote-unquote New Age section. It was, how many bookstores are there left anyway? Not many, but over the years, a bookstore was like, if I went to a new place, I'd visit a bookstore there. And I'd always gravitate towards the New Age section. So this New Age section was very extensive, unlike any I've seen before or since. Of course, this Borders no longer exists there. I don't know what's there, but it was a really nice community type feel and a place for people to go and meet. And those places just have been whittled away to nothing. And since the pandemic, it's just nothing. But the store has been gone for at least 10 years. So one day, early October, year 2000, I am browsing the New Age section, and this little corner of a book sticking out, this red book, a small book, thin, not very long, and small. And just the corner sticking out, and it caught my eye just as I came into the section, and there was no one else around down there. It was probably like a Tuesday afternoon. And you see this little red book sticking out. Of course, you're going to grab it in the New Age section. And that's when it began. Liber Legis, the Book of the Law. Again, can you say by Aleister Crowley? I don't know if you can say it's by him. The short version of the story is that I believe 1906, it could have been 1908. He was in Cairo, Egypt, which at this time was completely a frontier, Wild West kind of thing. And you could go into the pyramids or go into any of these places and do whatever you want to take things. He was there with his wife, or someone who was going to become his wife. She was a medium. And in April, they were there in April, I believe it was, and she started just getting these downloads. And he would just furiously write everything down that she was saying, and it just didn't make sense to him. And he started getting some cues in there, and he started testing it. And then he found this seal with Horus, and it was the 666 seal. It was in the Cairo Museum, and to him, that somehow matched up with what the woman was transmuting, downloading, and then that's how it began. And essentially, he had communication with Awas, the minister of Satan himself, and received what I consider and what others consider to be the New Age Bible. Of course, it's the Old Age as well. The main point of this New Age Bible, the Book of the Law, was do what thou will. And then love is the law, love under will. And people really get that one mixed up. Oh, it's love. It's the same kind of love that made North Viet Cong soldiers hack off the arms of children who were inoculated by U.S. soldiers right after they left. That's the love he speaks of. That's the love under law. It's a captivity. But the main point that really is what got through to the masses is do what thou will. And, look, the Beatles had Aleister Crowley as a prominent part of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band cover. Of course, Led Zeppelin. I mean, Jimmy Page lived in Aleister Crowley's Bolginskine Manor up in Scotland on Loch Ness. He was the prophet of the New Age, which is Old Age. But it was reintroduced into the world as... But, this isn't a lesson on that. This is what happened with me. So I read the book. I had never heard of Aleister Crowley before. Of course, I started doing, internet searches about him and devouring all I could. And I read the book. I only read it once. And at the end of the book, it says, never discuss or analyze this book and then dispose of it once you've read it, which is exactly what I did. I wrapped it up in a garbage bag and I threw it down the trash chute. Not soon after, mid-October-ish, I started getting this idea that I should do this magical ceremony. Something, again, that I've never even considered doing or knew about. And it came out of nowhere. And by Halloween night, 2020, or year 2000, 21 years ago from the moment I'm recording this today, I went into Central Park at night, and I had scouted out a place in the northern part of the park, very hilly area, very secluded place where nobody goes. And that was my target. And I had this little scooter, if you remember those Razor scooters, I used that as my transport. I'm like scooting through the streets of Manhattan across to the park from the Upper East Side, and everyone's, Halloweening it up in costumes. I got like a backpack on, like I'm ready to build, camo. I'm going on a mission here. And I get to my spot, and it was kind of a steep slope, but it was good enough, and it was facing north. The sky was brilliant. You could even see stars. It was a cool mystical fall night, Halloween. And what I did is I had these little wooden dowels cut, and I placed them, and I had the whole thing mapped out, and I placed them in as the 7-pointed Star of Babylon. And I used lining chalk. You squeeze out the chalk out of the thing, and you can make lines with it. And then I used string to make the actual. I tied it around and I was doing this all while there, but I had it all planned out. And when I was done, I sat in the middle of this big 7-pointed Star of Babylon, which I saw. The stars was in the book of the law. And then I would practice drawing it. And then I learned how to make it. I mean, to this day, it was perfect sacred geometry. I don't know how I would be able to recreate that to this day. And I have not tried since, at least to that degree did I pull it off. I was inspired. Let's just put it that way. Or possessed. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe a little bit. I mean, we open ourselves up that can happen. I mean, if you can be, helped by, God and angels, you can also be taken over by Satan and demons. Why not? If you believe one, you got to believe it all. You got to accept it all. So I'm there in the middle of this star, and I had this little iron cauldron that I'd bought some store. It was a very strange thing. And I just put all these, I put sage in there and all kinds of, other things I thought I should burn. And I burned those. And I also had 2 big vials of my own blood. A couple days before, I had gone and donated blood, and right after I was done donating, I asked if they could fill 2 vials up for me, and the woman was like, "What?" I said, "Yeah, it's for a friend. She's doing research." "Oh, okay." And I poured my blood out into the ground, and I said a prayer. Like I was asking God to know this world, to know the occult realities, all the things that I wanted to know, if they were true, I wanted to know about them. The weird occult things, from UFOs to vampires to monsters to sorcery, you name it. That whole reality, I wanted to know the truth. And that began my journey on the winding path, the winding left path that leads downward. It's a very easy path in the beginning. What it was for me is that I just started reading everything I could get my hands on about esotericism and the occult realities. And it really led me to Rudolf Steiner very quickly, because I had a vision when I was in that star on that little slope on Halloween night, middle of Central Park. And I saw just this glowing egg-like thing and psychedelic color shooting out, and I wasn't on any, mind-altering substances at all. And I mentioned to a friend the next day, and she says, "Oh, that sounds like the cover of Rudolf Steiner's book, How to Know Higher Worlds." And of course, I went back to the Borders, and lo and behold, they had it. I mean, in stock. And a lot of other of his books too. And many other books. So I just started reading. I came to Florida, and lo and behold, right where I was living, there was a massive occult bookstore with a very strange man running it, and just dove further in. So in the beginning, for me, it was mostly about reading. And of course, the internet, finding depth there. And then 9/11 happens. Wow, okay. But the overriding feeling was that I was going to do my own will in this world, in this life. And that was my program, and that's what I was going to do. And that's going to lead me to the truth that I seek. Now, with the left-hand path comes some prerequisites. I think one of them is just fornication, sodomy, drugs. Those are rock and roll. Those are kind of, it may sound like a cliche, but they're just part of the program. Literally sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And if you think it was just the Beatles and Led Zeppelin that were inspired by the Book of the Law and Aleister Crowley, you are sadly mistaken. The left-hand path is a winding path down. And sometimes it levels out. And then you go deeper, you learn more, go deeper. Eventually, this led me to a tarot. I became an adept at the tarot cards, the Aleister Crowley deck, Thoth deck. I mean, those cards, mind-blowing. You're literally tapping in to the satanic reality, and it is incredibly powerful. It is not the same level of power as God, but it is more in your face. The God reality, or the right-hand path, or the vanguard, which would be the pinnacle, if there's a triangle in this system. It's as subtle aware as God is described in the Quran. It's more, synchronicity exists on both paths, I believe. But the synchronicity on the left-hand path is more like, bam, in your face, But the right-hand path seems that way too. So I guess it's both. I then got into actual performing ritual magic, learning about that, reading. I went to Europe in the fall of 2006, and I toured around Europe for about a month. And I ended up in Glastonbury, England, which I called the magical heart of the world, if not just the European heart of magic. This is the land of King Arthur and enchantment and fairy realm and Stonehenge. So in 2006, I was there. I got there on Halloween night. I actually, before I even got to Glastonbury, I stopped at Stonehenge, and I had to sneak in because it was closed. It gets dark so early there that time of year. It's practically pitch dark at 4:30 in the afternoon. And they were closed by the time I got there because I come in on the channel, and I had to rent a car, and I'd never driven in England, and it was it was a it was a journey. It was just a trip. I made it out on the A303, I think, or M303. Made it to Stonehenge. It was closed, and then I had to sneak in. I jumped a fence, and I ended up having this really amazing, epic experience on Halloween night as I stood amongst the stones, which you're not allowed to do, for at least half an hour, 45 minutes before I was sitting on them. I was meditating. It was incredible. I mean, the stars and Sirius is rising. I mean, it's on the Avalon Plain. It was epic. It's truly, if anything can be called epic, it was that experience. And then a guard, this young guy shows up. I see his flashlight coming. I'm not going to run. I got, hey, mate, you can't be here. What are you? Oh, come on. And I was in an alternate reality. I just, okay. Oh, Yankee. You Yanks. Come on, you Yank. You can't be here. And we went under this little tunnel back to the main parking lot. And then like the boss guard was there, the older guy. Oh, is that your car parked down the street? Yeah. You're not allowed to be in here. Come back in the morning. We open at 9 a.m. And, okay. I'm sorry. Like I wasn't, they could have arrested me. Couldn't done anything to me. I couldn't fight. And they knew that I wasn't doing anything bad. So they just let me go. And I found the place I was renting in Glastonbury, right near town. Very awesome place. And then I was walking to town to go just check it out. And I met these girls, and they say, hey, come with us to a Halloween party. And they were making fun of me because they thought I sounded like John Wayne. And they're not used to having like American tourists this time of year there. I mean, it's not. I was the only one. And they brought me to this incredible party in the basement of this, like, could have been like 1,700-year-old basement. And it was just miraculous, the banging drum and bass. And then all of a sudden, I'm like the only person not costume. I'm a costume. Just standing in a corner, drinking a beer, observing all this. And then everything gets quiet, the lights dim, and the spotlight shines on this guy. And he's dressed in a black top hat, and it has big real black crow wings. And he's like in this tattered, dusty black suit, tails, and he's got a big beard, big bushy eyebrows, big giant bushy mustache. We are the Crow Clan. And in March, about 30 people, and they all have these staffs, and they're banging them together. In this ancient basement. And they take the center stage, the dance floor clears out, and they start talking about how they are the Crow Clan, and they represent life and death, and the crows were life and death. They do this dance where they bang their sticks together, to life, to death, to life and death as one, and they lock arms, ha ha ha, and they dance like a crow, like cackling, and then do it again, to life, to death, and then they bang their staffs, and he says, you are now initiated into the Crow Clan. And a lot of them you can see like they have tattoos of crow wings on their backs, and there's men and women, and they're all like, they have like kind of like pasty, like dusty powdered faces and hair, and then they march off. And the drum and bass cranks up, and I'm like, all right, I guess I've had a hell of a long day. Start at 4 a.m. in Paris. I think it's time to leave. And on Main Street in Glastonbury, which literally may be called Main Street, there is many awesome little stores, and this magic, like not like a magic as in like magic cards, but like ritual magic store, sorcery, witchcraft. I bought a dagger a disc, a chalice, and a wand, like a hewn out of some local wood. This wand is real. It's a real magical wand. Not that it's like, conjuring things up, but I mean, maybe it could. I don't know. But this is a real wand made by a real person who knows what they're doing. And I bought some other books. Got back to the States and started practicing ceremonial magic with my tools. A lot of it's centered around, when I would do a ceremony, trying to get money. Just being honest. When I was getting to those, I was just like, money. All right. How do I use this magical powers? Give me money. I mean, maybe women were secondary, but I already had girls, and that didn't seem to be a problem. But money was what I really wanted. And I don't know. I think it worked to some degree. In 2010, I was back in New York City. I happened to be there for Halloween night, and I did just a commemorative ceremony in the park, different area, just to kind of commemorate it. Sex, drugs, rock and roll. Got addicted to opiate pills in there. Barely made it out of that alive. Mind-altering substances are in the book of the law. Take mind-altering substances and worship me is one of the things. It's supposed to be ISIS, I think, giving the instructions at time. So I would do that. More the merrier. And then things kind of plateaued going into the 2012-ish range area. I was still on the left-hand path, of course, but winding down in a much slower descent. But heading down, winding down, slowly, ever slowly. In late 2017, I kind of, I felt there was a true crossroads coming in my life. I couldn't grasp it though. But I had ended up falling back into friendship with a group of people who were really into Burning Man, which I had attended in 2006, 2007, 2008. Took 2009 off, and my last one was 2010. I also had gone to other parties and events over the years. But I really distanced myself from the crowd because I had gotten married and the wife wasn't into it. Now I was no longer with the wife, and I was kind of got invited to this party and a New Year's Eve, and it felt great. And then there was this big, they call it like a burn event, a couple thousand people. And I was invited to go, and there was this beautiful Russian girl who I'll never forget it. When she left the New Year's party, she sought me out, and she just came up to me and gave me a kiss on the lips, and she was so soft and warm and shapely, and just, she was beautiful. Man, she said, I can't wait to see you at the party later this month. And it kissed me again, and I said, I got to go to this thing. Well, I was all in. January 2018 came, and I was like, I'm back, baby. I'm going. And that path, which had been kind of level for a while, but still down there on the left hand, winding as always, crooked. It started angling down, a little steep, getting steeper, and I could feel it. If you're not familiar with Burning Man, it is or was I don't know what the situation is now, but it's the ultimate in idolatry. I mean, there's a giant man that gets burnt. It is do what thou will. It is sex, drugs, and rock and roll nonstop. It is the culmination of MK Ultra, the 60s, New Age, occultism, consumerism, materialism, anti-God, all wrapped up into one package and dropped in the middle of a dry lake bed in northern Nevada. Black Rock Playa, apropos called. So here I was about to dive back into this in a big way. And on January 8th, I noticed morning my beloved cat, whose name is Millhouse, an orange tabby, was missing. He was always on the bed in the morning. Meowing, he'd come in, he'd lay on the bed. He could come and go as he wanted. And left the door could be open a little so he could come and go outside as he wanted, whenever he wanted. And he wasn't there in the morning. And I searched for him for about 24 hours. I found him the next morning, dead by the side of the road, not far from my house. He had been hit by a car. He just had like a broken head and a little bit of blood out of his mouth. He wasn't smashed on the road. He looked peaceful, and someone had placed him there off the road, and it was a pretty busy road, but it was kind of hidden. And they covered him in a white shirt. I don't know how. I'll never know. But somebody, by the grace, literally the mercy of God, if I would have found him splattered all over the road, run over 100 times, I don't know. I think it would have broken me. And then I would have just gone really down. But the death had to happen because it had to be something so intense to shake my foundations. It had to be something shocking and traumatic. And I loved that cat. It was like my kid. And I was able to bring him home and mourn. Now, I completely understand if you're hearing this and they're like, it was a cat, man. Just a cat. That is perfectly okay. I mean, that's how you feel. And in objectively, that may be correct. But I'm just telling you what happened for me. And this was the catalyst. This was the catalyst that needed to happen. I got the message. I truly felt that the next day I really, my life began to change. I began a daily prayer schedule, meditation, and that's when I started reading or rereading the Bhagavad Gita. Every morning I would set up a little space where I had, and I would pray to God at first, and then I would sit back, meditate a little bit, and I would read. And this is what got me through it. It was a traumatic event. It was an undeniably traumatic event that shook me up basically to my core and changed my life. Whatever it takes, right? I mean, some people, they have to get hit by a bus, or some people, they have to experience the death of a child or a spouse. It had to be a death. And that was the closest, most available death that could happen that would shake me up the most. Suddenly, boom. I mean, he was a young cat. He was 3 years old. So it shook me up. And needless to say, I did not go to that big 3,500 person Burning Man party. So actually, it was happening on my birthday as well. I didn't connect with that Russian girl, and I left it all behind. I didn't hang out with any of those people anymore. I left it all behind. I left it all behind at that crossroad. And I took a auxiliary path that would lead me to the right-hand path. It was a, 18-year diversion or so. If Milhouse, the orange, big, fat, funny tabby cat, would not have died suddenly and tragically, traumatically, I would have gone to the Burning Man event. And at this crossroads, I would have taken the left hand again. And I believe, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that the descent would have been accelerated. I would have descended very fast and totally gone into the darkness without maybe, look, the grace of God, the mercy of God is ever present. And I'm going to get to something in a little bit. So I don't know, but I think to get me out, if I had gone down that branching to the left and down again, it would have probably taken something much, much bigger, probably personal, near death experience to get me going straight to, get me on this auxiliary path back to the right hand. I don't even know. I don't know. I don't know. Now, if I can digress a little bit here, if you've listened to my first video, my journey to the Quran, a complete revelation, I speak about how in July 2000, I was overcome with such gratitude for God's mercy and guidance and bounty that I, on the side of the road, riding my bike, just stopped, got down on my hands and knees and thanked God and said, God, I surrender to you. So I had that going for me. Even though I walked the left-hand path, and it was about 3 or 4 months later that I read the, Liber Aligus Book of the Law, and then I began in earnest the left-hand path, I still had like that, that covenant that I pledged, my pledge with God. I believe if I didn't have that, I don't think I would not be where I am right now at all. I had protection and I had guidance, even though I walked in the shadow of the valley of death. Thou art was with me. And I don't think that's ascribing a quality or partnership to God that does not exist. As it says in the Quran, we shall not ascribe a partnership to God which does not exist. So I don't believe that God's guidance is ascribing a partnership which does not exist. I think it does exist. That's my experience. So I had protection and guidance, but I also was let loose, and I had to make the choices. But at the same time, if you think about, and then my cat dying in 2018, I mean that was a message. That was a message to get going the other way now. So after several months in 2018 of just really being isolated from friends and everything else, I started coming out of my shell and still doing this daily meditation. I was doing some yoga, praying to God just every day. Thank you, God. Thank you. That was just really part of my daily ritual, which it hadn't been, but variations of it maybe. I was even on the left-hand path over the years. I often was on my knees, bowing my head to the ground, thanking God. And that also saved me. I'm sure of it. Is the chapel perilous? Is perilous, and you need all the help you can get. So I'm still getting there, though. That auxiliary path back to the right-hand path to God in earnest, and cleaning oneself and just changing things away from the Babylonian do what thou will system, which is the default system that is encouraged at all points across this reality. It took a couple years. The auxiliary path back, if I could even map it out, was a steady climb back to the right-hand path. And a major point on that journey was in November 2020 when I started reading the Quran, A Complete Revelation. That, to me, signaled that I was on the right path back to where I needed to go. And then a couple things started happening in 2021, which we're in right now still. And in early August 2021, something happened. I still don't really know how I can describe it to you, but it was an encounter I had with a woman, and it was something that created a shift in me. That I felt like I had tested God, and I had paid the price dearly. Dearly. I had the worst vertigo, dizziness imaginable for 2 weeks. I didn't go see a doctor because I don't do that. But I think most people would have sought serious help for this. I was barely functioning. that was, to me, in early August 2021 was when I actually rejoined the right-hand path. Because it was after that experience that I honestly, the only where I could turn, this is flee to God. I could only flee to God and pray to get out of this. There was more than that too. It was more than just vertigo. I was sick. I mean, I think maybe I got the Delta version of, or God knows what else is floating around out there nowadays. Bioweapon. Who knows? But I was very bad shape. It took about a month, a little less than a month. A month to get feeling. So by September, this is not even that long ago from the day. That's 2 months ago from the date of this recording. But it's been a long 3 months, very long. Probably the longest 3 months of my life, from August, September, October, and then right now, the end of October, beginning of November. I still am fresh on the right-hand path. I kind of can zigzag a little bit on it, I feel. And I suspect that there could be further crossroads. I don't know. I'm not going back to the left-hand path. That is my pledge. That is my covenant with myself and with God. And I personally know those things that are of the left-hand path. You cannot do them when you walk the right-hand path. You cannot. Remember, the only sin on the left-hand path is restriction. So you can do everything except restrict yourself. Just let that sink in. And try to really conceptualize it and understand it, what I'm saying here. The only sin on the left-hand path, the Vama, Marga, is restriction. So that means I can do anything except restrict myself. You got it. Wow, that sounds great. And thus is the state of the world. The right-hand path is all kinds of restrictions. That's the point of it. Discipline. This is a serious situation. This is life, soul life situation here. I've done that. Now, maybe I'm really lucky in that I've been able to do what I willed, and also still now come back. But it's also kind of hard. But it's not that hard in a sense because I don't see any other choice at all. Not because it's not some, amorphous, I don't want to displease God. It's actual real stuff. Okay. It's real. And I don't want to be hammered into a pancake. It's not fun. It doesn't mean that I can't make mistakes and so forth, but there are certain very simple, obvious things that aren't to be done on the right-hand path. And the main thing of it is that literally the main thing of it is that you are brought down to your knees in submission to God, and you know that your will is a flea in a hurricane compared to God's will. A grain of sand on a beach versus a hurricane, a category 7 hurricane. It just, there's no magnitude. There's no equation. There's nothing. Even an allegory, an analogy does not even come close. So it's just for some kind of a measure of understanding. And that is the right-hand path. Surrendering totally in submission to God. It's not easy. I understand that. I mean, look, I've been doing this for a long time. Basically, my concentration has been on God for 21 years. One way or another, it has been about God. About God's creation, about God's plans. One way or another. Because the left-hand path is still part of God's creation. And we are apparently given the choice to stay on that default path or climb out of it and get right with God. That is really the best way I can put it. And I think things can fall in line after that. Yeah, there is a learning curve. And you still have to, you really got to work on it. You got to do a lot of fasting. And I don't just mean food, and a lot of elimination. I mean, you're not going to stop eating. So there's things that you're stopping doing these things for the rest of your life. That's a pretty big deal. That's what we're talking here. And it's big to even say it. And I don't like to make big sweeping statements. Oh, I'm never doing this again. I'm never doing that again. It's just, I don't know. I mean, I guess there can be mistakes and stumbles. I am on the right-hand path, though. I may stumble. I may even fall, but I am not leaving this path. I suggest you do the same. However you figure it out. But it starts with submission to God. And for me, that means on my hands and knees, forehead to the floor. Thank you, God. Thank you for this day. Thank you for this life. Thank you for the love, the air in my lungs, the thoughts in my mind, the food, the water. Thank you for this life. Thank you for giving me a chance at living. Thank you for the life. I mean, who else you could thank? There's nowhere else to go. I promise you. I've been there. There's nowhere else. Okay, I've gathered myself. I do get emotional when I think about God and how He has continued to guide me and bless me even though I have gone astray. And it just overwhelms me sometimes. It's very real. It just wells up. I would just like to also add that the women that I attracted and was attracted to while I walked on the left-hand path were always, one way or another, involved in witchcraft, tarot, spiritualism, yoga. And I kind of lacked the ability to see that this whole thing, I was attracting it and it was attracting me. I'd always be, oh, wow, isn't that cool? This girl, she reads the same tarot cards I do, and she's read the same stuff, and she knows all the same stuff I do, and we can share things, and duh. It's just, looking back on it, I was just always so amazed. And yes, there were numerous synchronicities in there as well with these relationships, and I definitely honor that. And I'm not taking away from it. I mean, it's real life. This is what happened. But it happened because I was walking the left-hand path. But it's not to say that some of those women couldn't talk about God as well. One specifically, I remember, she definitely could speak of God and would say, I thank God and pray to God that this works and so forth. But that was in the early 2000s, and that was before The Secret, and that was before things started shifting. I don't know if you can remember about those days where I remember right after 9/11, you would hear a lot of talk about God. President Bush would mention God. People on the TV and pundits and celebrities and God. And then a shift occurred sometime around like 2003, I feel like. And then that was kind of when, if you were in a certain, spiritual community, you would say the universe instead of God. Nobody was saying, oh, God wanted this to happen. Or I thank God. Oh, the universe wanted this to happen. I thank the universe. So that shift for me is, if I can remember correctly, it was around 2003. And it's been a total ride since then into that realm where I don't even know if people say the universe anymore. Oh, I thank the universe. The universe. One person recently said, oh, the universe wanted that to happen. And I was like, oh, okay. The universe. It doesn't make me feel anything. I feel nothing. I say, I'm so grateful to the universe for giving me these things. No, I'm grateful to God for giving me these things, for giving me life, for giving me a mind and a spirit and the ability to connect with the deep truths in this world, what I've wanted and what I've worked for. Worked very hard. I've been through a lot. To make it to this moment, I've been through a lot. And I know everyone's been through something and many somethings. But I honor my path. I honor that I traveled the left-hand path. But I am very eternally thankful to have stepped off of it. It's a path that can take you all the way down. I think we can be honest and say that most people are on the left-hand path. They don't know it. That's a big part of the world situation today, is that the majority of people walk the left-hand path. They don't know it. They are serving the satanic system. They don't know it. They don't believe in it. And here we are. But I walked it. I believed in it. And it's real. And it's definitely something, if you are on consciously, that if it's meant to be for you, there will be that fork in the road, that crossroads. And it will give you that opportunity to get off of it and to travel that auxiliary path back to the right-hand path. That's how I see it for myself. It might be different for you. It might literally be you're on the left-hand path and the crossroads leads you right to the right-hand path. I don't know. If you're given that chance, take it. If it's something big like what happened with me, you have to be really stupid. And look, you can't have walked the left-hand path consciously for a long time and have something happen like what happened to me and not know that it is a sign that you must change. So in many ways, there really is no option, but there is. I could have sucked it up and said, you know what? Cat's dead. It sucked. I'm okay. It's time to party. I know one thing for sure: I would not be sitting where I am right now if that were the case. I don't know how my life would look. I most certainly would not have read the Quran and submitted to God the way I have. There's no way. It just wouldn't be possible. And would I have gotten another opportunity at a crossroads where something even worse would happen? I don't know. And I will never know. And that I'm grateful for. Thanks for listening.